I'll let you know. It looks like we're going live. There's the little alert. I'd say we're live now. So it's 10:30 a.m. I forgot to send out the warning. We didn't know what time we were going live to. We've got lots of things going on. JT is in his gigantic personal library, and Bill's got to dial in from the moon.
Jesus, what a mess. Yeah,
I'm really under a bridge, scratching myself, fiending for the days that things go well.
I'm calling in from the Palm Springs Public Library. So that's where I'm at today.
There's been some wild things going on in this market, fellas. I think we're going to have to talk about some of those things.
Yeah. I said that this reminds me, I said this on the Twitter machine, it reminds me of like when I was a freshman, there was this girl, Juliet. She was so hot. And like once upon a time in Mr. Gavriluck's English class, she talked to me and I was like, cool, I got a chance. And then like just totally shattered my will like the next week. And I expect that's what the market will do.
What happened? How'd she break your heart?
She hooked up with an older guy that drove a pretty cool GMC Typhoon, and I knew I had no shot after that.
You got that Typhoon yet, mate? What are you driving now?
A purple Chrysler minivan. What you know about flexing, dog?
The Cadillac of minivans.
Purple though. That's
not for long.
That's bold.
Yeah, this is a true treasure. This car.
We got some good names in here. We got Saskatchewan, Scotland, Toronto, Seattle, two Seattles, Netherlands. Someone in British Columbia. I'm not going to have a go at that name. Sunny Coast on Queensland and Norway. What's up, Sunny Coast?
I think I owe a couple of y'all some information. If I do, ping me. I'm sorry. I think one of my Canadian friends is tuning in. And I promised to send him something and didn't. If so, hit me up.
I think, BB, you want to take it away?
Yeah. First of all, let's talk about how Value After Hours indirectly helped kids in need get gift cards because a fan of the show pinged me and we got some pressure on Kroger and they contacted her and sent the cards out. So shout out to the community for helping pressure them a bit. Anyway, awesome. now that I've patted us on the back, comments in last week was like, why doesn't Bill take any shots at growth investors? Why is he so angry at value?
Because he is one. No, just kidding.
Hey now. The answer is that I hate myself. So I like to yell at myself. That's just a general thing. But secondly, like, look, I just think that if people are coming to this show on average, we're not talking about valuation agnostic investing. And I think that we all sort of agree that valuation agnostic investing is not really what we do. So that's why I don't even really mention them. I will tell you, people have asked like, so how has David Gardner impacted Bill's thinking? And David, if you ever hear this, I'm sorry, because I know you care about conscious capitalism, but like the idea that I'm toying around with is British American tobacco. And that's how I'm implementing what he has taught me. And that may sound silly, but I think the back end with these nicotine pouches has the potential to really surprise to the upside. And I have a theory that society's big problem isn't nicotine, it's cancer. And I think that these pouches are a real platform that could turn these things into growth companies again down the road. And I think you got to think 5 to 10 years out to get your head around that. And maybe that's wrong, but that has been how I have implemented the teachings.
So the thesis would be that there's going to be a transition from the darts, the coffin nails, to the pouches.
Yeah, which are just straight nicotine to the dome. You don't have any tobacco staining your teeth or any of that stuff. And like, I look at our world and we're hooked on opioids, or a lot of people are. We objectively, a lot of us are like abusing caffeine to get through the day. opening our minds to marijuana and psychedelics. Like, I don't see why nicotine is not perceived as a performance enhancer if you can get the cancer stink off it.
I forget where I heard this, but I think it's an interesting statistic that basically caffeine is responsible for the Industrial Revolution. You ever heard this theory? I'm sorry if I can't remember where I heard it, but it's only in the last year or so that I heard it. So basically, what used to happen was people got up and worked their farms or whatever, and to get going through the day, and it's pretty boring. Possibly even JT, did you tell me this, dude? Am I telling you a story?
No, I don't know this one.
So this is people used to wake up and they'd be, bored pushing the plow or whatever. So they just start drinking, because you can get your calories drinking, as we all know. And they just keep on going through the day, 3 sheets to the wind, because it's boring work, and it's more fun if you're drunk. And then they discovered caffeine. The UK discovered or not discovered it, rather, they just kind of imported the beans from somewhere else, and it became a little bit more kind of fashionable to drink coffee. So people started drinking coffee, and rather than being drunk in the morning, they got this caffeine boost. And, you start thinking a little bit clearer, and all of a sudden you're like, what we need to do is mechanize all of this stuff and stop pushing this bloody plow. And so then that was the start of the Industrial Revolution. And they sort of point to the fact that, the Middle East discovered caffeine first, and there was that early, algebra. And at one point, it was sort of that was where all of the intellectual horsepower in the world was, and where it was all going on. Anyway, just an interesting factoid. No idea if it's right or not. Can't remember where I heard it, but it's from the internet, so it's probably true.
Must be true.
Well, it's from the internet, and people heard it on a podcast now, so it's definitely true.
Now it's real. You can cite this podcast.
So, Bill,
that's right.
David, he buys Amazon at 80 cents, and your equivalent of that is buying British tobacco.
I have the value disease is deep in me. I can't just completely shed it.
Fair enough. I
mean, look, what he taught me is how to think years and years out, right? That's kind of my big takeaway from him. And I understand that that's very, very hard to do, but I always would either write it off or assume it had to be to the downside. I'd never allow myself to imagine an upside scenario. So that idea to me is something that currently appears inexpensive to me and decent value, with potential upside optionality years out. That's how I internalize his teaching.
I think one of the things that he's almost certainly right about is that just holding for very, very long periods of time gets the business working for you, and you're going to have some monster winners. I don't know of any investor who gets older and more experienced who says, what I really need to do is trade more often. They all go exactly the opposite way. They all say fewer better trades, I think is, and when I say trades, like investing, like buying something and just letting it roll. And then the only time they sell is when it's just egregious, unless they're Buffett, in which case he just doesn't even bother then, just let it go.
Yeah.
Probably Terry Smith even better at that.
Not selling, even when it's overvalued.
Yeah.
Has Terry Smith been around long enough that you can say,
oh boy, Toby. Oh boy. What are you about to say? You're about to get us in trouble.
Can you say that though? Can you say, I get that he's an older gentleman. I don't think he's old yet, but he's older. How long's he been running Fundsmith?
I don't know this answer off the top of my head, but I think he's got a long track record.
Let's see it full cycle.
I think Fundsmith, if I remember right, might actually be a little bit newer relative to Buffett's track record.
Say it again.
I think it might be a little bit of a newer thing relative to
Buffett's track record
in the last 10 years or something.
That's what I would have said. I think until you've seen a growth cycle and a value cycle, you can't really draw any conclusions. I'm going to throw that one out there.
November 2010.
Right. Good luck. Send your comments to Toby.
2010, man. 2010 is that's the entire growth cycle. Let's see how it runs from 2000 to 2010.
You mean 2020 to 2030?
2020 to 2030, yeah. September 2020 to whenever it comes to an end.
Yeah, I pulled up on Koyfin, like growth versus value all the way back to the I think to 2000. I was talking to Rob. Rob actually pulled it up. I looked at it. It is wild to see how wide the dispersion was, and then how it collapsed, and then how wide it got again.
It's like two different worlds, huh? Like 2000 to 2010, and then.
Yeah, I mean, if you just simply break it into factors, we really are right back in 2000, at least visually.
Mm-hmm. So is it a new world, or is it that was just a phase like everything?
I don't know, man. We'll see.
It's too early to say, but in 10 years' time, I'll let you know which one.
It'll be obvious.
That's right. I do think that there's a lot of consolidation and a lot of, like, I hate to be this guy, but I don't, because I actually think it's true. Like, it just seems to me that more government intervention favors the bigger and bigger guys. And, like, you know, it's just one anecdote, but I was talking to a small business guy around town the other day, and I live in a really small town, so it doesn't, you know, this is not a sufficient sample or anything, but just the pain that he's going through and how hard it is for him to get labor and capital. And then I look at like Starbucks, and like they're just eating his lunch, poor guy.
Yeah, it's tough out there for the little fellas. Bill, you got any more on your topic?
I don't think so. I think that's all I had.
Anyone left to
Somebody
offend?
said that, yeah, Hunter said he's not sure if I like investing anymore. I'm not sure if I do. So you got that going for you. We're in
Is that a
agreement
comment?
there. Yeah.
I got a couple of.
Here's one. I just said the commonality between Buffett and Gardner is they both have streams of income, and people got offended. I'm not comparing Gardner to Buffett, folks. Leave it alone. That's the last comment I have. Now I'll listen.
I've got there's a few things that happened while we were away. One of them was the Munger. You know, the Munger did a podcast. Everybody knows Munger did a podcast. And one of the comments that he had on the podcast was he thinks that this current round is crazier than the .com bubble.
That's interesting, huh?
How do you feel about that?
Terrified? Is that the, I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to imagine what has been his data flow in which to make that proclamation. Because if I had to guess, I would say he's more disconnected than he probably was in the 90s.
Yeah.
Right? Like I feel like he was probably doing a little bit more work around headquarters in the 90s than he is today.
Yeah.
Because he was a spry, 80-year-old back then. So I don't know. Like, what do you have any intuition around that?
What he's seeing, or whether
why would he? What would it be that he's seeing that's making him make that statement?
Potentially like the crypto, the NFTs. That's pretty crazy. Like NFTs, that might work, but that stuff's crazy. Like let's run NFTs back in a year or so, and let's see how cool it all looks then. Yeah, what about the Munger? That was another thing that was weird. Does Munger had a margin loan against the Alibaba? Did you see that?
Yeah, that's degenerate.
It looked like he was down like 90+% on that margin loan, on that position.
Is that bad?
You can come back. I mean, it can 10 back from here. Like, given that, if I could put that position on right now, yeah, I'd do it. Like $2.7 million margin loan against 2.7, whatever it is, $3 million of Baba.
Yeah,
jump on it, JT. You're more of an expert on this stuff.
I don't know what's the most recent developments of that. The margin loan that they had in Daily Journal before was for, I believe, the funds went towards actually like investing in JTI, their software little startup that they have inside of Daily Journal. So I don't know about, if there was more margin added with Baba to buy Baba, or if there's still cash available. He was getting cheap leverage probably in his Schwab account or whatever the hell it's in, right?
His Robinhood account.
Yeah, basically. So yeah, maybe it was IB even where they have the lowest margin loans. So anyway, I'm not sure what the specifics are now, but obviously he's more leveraged than he was when when the equity component of it just shrinks a little bit, right? So
Apple Seed says the margin loan is from 2014.
Yeah, it was put into JTI, I think. So
anyway. Michael Mobison has a good thing out at the moment where he says that you got this problem as an investor where it doesn't really matter how smart you are, you got the same hardware installed, so you're still going to react the same way to, we're all going to panic, we're all going to do other things. Any views on that?
Is that a new statement?
I mean, we've known that for a while, but I think it's kind of an interesting. It's just a handy thing to remember that no matter how smart you are, you still got all the same caveman stuff running through you.
So I think that this ties in perfectly to my comment about Gardner and Buffett and the commonality. I think that the answer here is you want to be conservatively enough positioned. Gardner happens to have subscription revenue that pays his income. Buffett happens to have an incredible insurance organization. I need to figure out whether or not it's cigarette dividends. I don't know what the answer is for me, but like, you got to have a personal financial balance sheet that enables you to not panic and not force sell. I think that's the key to all of this.
It's not money from the podcast. I know that.
Hell no, it isn't.
Moving on. Frank Zarilla has Zor trades on Twitter. So I saw somebody criticize this as being not true. So take this with a grain of salt, but I didn't think it was kind of an interesting, it's an interesting data point, and it seems to have been backed up by, who's a Tradies Asset Management? You guys know what Tradies? No.
Oh yeah. Give me a second. Oh, Gavin Baker.
Gavin Baker. Yeah.
Yeah.
So these are the two tweets. So Frank Zarilla says that this is 5 days ago, so it's all moved around a bunch since then. But the point is basically that SPY was down a measly 4% from all-time highs, but at the same time, we've got 486 stocks out of the 500, however many there are in SPY, down 25% more in the last 30 days. So we've been talking about that a little bit, that there has been this. I've been seeing it mostly in the growth stocks. There's a big crash, but that's clearly like, that's everything. If it's 486, everything's been really beaten up. You still there, Bill?
Oh, I'm here. I'm crying. I'm crying as you're saying this. I don't know all of them.
Gavin Baker added that in 2000, or in the run up to the .com, the whole market the index was held up by 2 stocks. And so he's like, the fact that it's 4 stocks, it's pretty broadly based at this point.
Robust now.
It's like at the moment, it's 4 stocks that are keeping, that's like responsible for 70% of the performance over the last, like whatever, 6 months, 12 months, something like that.
That's crazy. I mean,
it's twice as much.
I mean, it's not narrowed down yet, right? What does it finally narrow down to? Google and Microsoft. Last 2 standing.
And Tesla.
Apple.
And Tesla. I mean, why not? It is funny that through that whole sell-off, Tesla didn't really get dinged up that much until like maybe Friday.
That's an enigma to me. I have no idea what's going on there.
It's one of the most interesting. It's one of the most. What else can you do but just kind of observe it at this point? Like, it's absolutely baffling to me.
It is. Wish everyone luck.
Yeah, I mean, I got nothing else to say about it. I don't know.
I did look at the TD Ameritrade has this kind of fear and greed index sort of indicator thing that they use. That's got a bunch of their own proprietary sort of like our retail people buying basically inside of TD Ameritrade.
Right.
And when you look at it's only been around for a couple of years, but when you look at it, it's like it's a total counter indicator for the most part. It seems like it was lowest reading came in March of 2020. and it was the highest was like this summer, and now it's like it's back up pretty close to where it was this summer. So
in terms of bullishness, so in terms of like people are feeling bullish, therefore it's higher.
Right. So I mean, you can use that however you want into your thinking, but like it's probably doesn't bode particularly well. I don't know.
Well, fear and greed was kind of interesting. Like fear and greed, the one that's on the, I think it's CNN's or something like that. Fear and greed got down to, it was just a hair over 20, which has typically been the time that this is not part of my process. This is not something that anybody, I just sort of watch it for fun, like just to kind of watch it. But fear and greed it was down to 20, which is like, if you want to swing at it, you got to swing at it there. So it's no surprise.
Fear then in the last
fear. Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah. Well, who knows where it is now? Like it's pretty, it's volatile. Like it does move around a fair bit. Like it was very, very, as you were saying, it was greedy in summer. It was like super greedy in summer.
Yeah.
But it was only a very short spike. Like the trend, I'm now doing moving averages on the fear and greed. That's the point of the cycle we're in.
Yeah. Just grasping at straws.
It was trending. It was trending down. It was crashing down. I was like, this is kind of interesting. The only problem with the fear and greed index, and I've used the Wayback Machine to go all the way back and look, it starts in like 2010. So you can't get a really good look.
Yeah.
Like I want to know what happens in a 2007, 8, 9 scenario where like people are terrified and then you get the big sell-off at the end. Where does it go? Like does it go down to zero? Like what's
it may not be at zero? Calibrated for real
that's it.
Market cycle.
But then March 2020 was, in terms of like
something.
In terms of like very short-term fear, that was impressive.
Yeah.
JT, do you want to do your veggies and then we'll take some questions because we haven't done that for a few weeks.
Yeah, for sure. So I have a piece on lasers. I'm going to try to teach you how a laser works.
Laser beams.
Yeah. So this may be, I've tried to learn this like multiple times in my life and it's like really hard to, it just like kind of comes in one ear and it like stays there for a minute and then it just exits and then I can't explain it again. But I read an analogy from Steven Strogratz, who's like a math professor I like his writing a lot. He has a lot of really good science he's like a pretty good storyteller. So he has this analogy that I'll share with you that maybe will help you understand it. But so the idea behind a laser is that it's trillions of atoms that are emitting these light waves that are like perfectly in sync. And so, like it's called a light amplification by stimulated emissions of radiation. So that's what LASER is an acronym for. And so here's the analogy that Strogratz uses. Picture that you go and you find yourself on an alien planet, and in front of you, curiously enough, is a watermelon and a step stool. And you take the watermelon and you set it on the step stool and you observe it. And it starts kind of like gyrating and pulsating, and then it falls off the step stool. And as it falls off, it shoots a seed out. And you're like, that's weird. Okay. And then you keep walking along, and then you see millions of watermelon and millions of step stools. And you're watching them, and you go around and you start putting them up on top of on top of the step stools, like providing some activation energy to this. And the strange thing is that when one of the seeds shoots out of one of the watermelons, if it hits one of the watermelons that's already on the stool, it basically passes straight through it and it duplicates itself. And you have two of these seeds flying and they're like perfectly in sync with each other. So you can imagine that, the watermelons want to get back to their ground state is what it's called. Like that's where they're sort of the happiest. But if you do something to agitate them, if you provide enough energy to get them up onto the stool, they will emit something, which ends up being like a light wave, right? And this is how like everything works actually. Like, so if you picture like a toaster, and the reason why it's red when it like heats up is because the electron passing through that wire and the heat created is boosting up the metal inside of there just like kind of like that activation. And then a red photon is shooting off of there and into your eyeball. And like, that's why you see red light coming out of your toaster. So every time it gives up its excess energy to get back to the ground state, it emits a photon. And so how a laser works is you basically picture like elevating a bunch of these watermelons effectively inside of there, and then they're shooting off and hitting other watermelons, and the seeds come out. But the problem is they're going in all kinds of random directions and stuff. And what the laser does is it has like a cavity, almost picture like a sound, like a like a pipe for like an organ, how it would like sort of capture the sound and get it all like lined up and directing it. This is effectively what the cavity of the laser does. And then it's basically like a bunch of mirrors inside of it that it kind of like gets it all going. And then like one of the mirrors is slightly imperfect so that some of that gets released, and that's what a laser is shooting out of there. So they're all the same color and phase and direction, like all perfectly synced up. And that's what allows them to, it's almost like an echo chamber inside of there. And so what ends up like, what's amazing about this then is like, think about like a surgical laser. You have, you would normally have a scalpel, right? Which has a certain thickness, but because you can get it down to like this tiny amount of like electrons or like photons, basically, like you can make it so small that like you can be so accurate with it, right? And it also cauterizes at the same time. So it's super cool. Well, and of course, like there's all these different applications for it, like, CD players, laser printers, barcode scanners, fiber optics, photolithography, which is like one way of making chips, like for computers, like cutting and welding, speed traps, your golf range finder, like all this stuff is using lasers in cool ways. So let's rewind it a little bit and kind of like back out of this. And by the way, like, so the printing press, right? Like 1440s. And then it's like 170 years until we kind of get to the next cool thing, which is like the telescope, 1610. Another 90 years to get to the next cool thing, like a steam engine. Then like 60 more years to get to the telegraph. And then another 40 years to get to light bulbs, and telephones is another 40 years. And then, cars is another 20 years after that. And so things start to speed up, right? Like we're getting more and more stuff, as we get radios, airplanes. The 1950s had Sputnik. We had the 1970s, we get microprocessors, and then digital cell phones in the 90s, and the internet and the International Space Station. 2000s, we get the Human Genome Project, the iPhone, the Large Hadron Collider. And then the last 10 years, we get like CRISPR and 3D printing, and then like maybe crypto. Okay. And so here's something interesting about lasers is that Einstein posited that lasers were a thing that could happen all the way back in 1917. And it wasn't until 1960 that we had the first working laser. And so it's like, and then 1969, there was the first like retinal detachment surgery that used a laser with the argon laser. And so all of which is to say, like, 52 years between when it was like first conceived and then an actual like working example of something useful. Well, I know that I just went through and showed all those things that are getting, like that we're speeding up technology. But I have to wonder if, it took that many, almost a whole century or half a century to get lasers like being useful. I kind of wonder about crypto in that way of like, yeah, it's like there's some cool stuff, but like maybe it's going to be quite a while until we have anything that's actually like truly useful in a way that is like really changes the world. All of which is to say, to go back to what Bill was talking about and having long timelines, like you may need to be in this for a long time before you ever really sort of get to that magical place where this changes the world like you sort of think it does. And I would just say that like the patience may be like extremely required in this situation, because it's not all like everything has taken quite a long time. And like, I think we have to give ourselves a little bit more expectations of how long technologies take to go from the idea to the actual like useful application of it.
Have you seen the Bitcoin price though? It's up a lot.
Right now, right?
So is Ethereum. I don't know. I like the idea of the decentralized internet, Web 3.0. That looks cool. Yeah, but to your point, that might be 52 years away.
It's not going to be probably 52 years, but even if it was 10 years, is like, are people really willing to be sort of like stuck in this grasping, looking for an application that really changes the world place for 10 years? You really like have that time horizon? I really hope you do, because that may be what's required of you.
Well, we'll see. As long as the price keeps on going up,
as long as the price doesn't go down, yeah, then that's fine.
Is it like crypto is interesting to me because it ticks a lot of boxes in terms of its being decentralized and being like digital cash, you know.
Ticks a lot of your biases.
Ticks a lot of my biases, yeah. But I don't know how to value it. Like the only argument for it's like an asset allocation question. If you believe it's real and have some exposure to it as like a portion of your portfolio, but it's just not a topic for, you know, for a value guy. It's like talking about the relative attractiveness of, like, you know, the euro over, I don't know, the dollar yen or something like that. Yeah. Still there, Bill?
Yeah, I just want the Bored Apes to crash, and so I can buy one.
Why don't you just right click?
That's my only strong opinion.
Why do you want to this? Why do you want to own it?
I don't know, dude. I just do. I don't know. I'm not going to be able to use logic to tell you this answer. I want a Bored Ape.
I mean, it's true. It's also true. Like that timeline, Web 2.0 was interesting. I mean, what are we? Is this Web 2.0? Web 1.0 was interesting, but you know, those websites now, they look kind of they're comical how simple they were, how rudimentary they were. They were like, you know, some early species before it kind of evolved into something now. Like, internet's pretty impressive, right? Like it is everything. Like my TV has internet. I would just about stream everything.
I like the idea of owning an ape and then getting into a club in the metaverse that only people that own the ape can get into, like Ready Player One type stuff. I like that. I think that's cool, and I think that may come.
What do you do once you get in there?
To anything I want, dude, because I'm sick and you're apeless.
So yeah,
you're apeless too.
Bunch of bros that
talking about their Bored Apes. I don't know.
That would be disappointing, but Kylie Jenner will be there, so
I'm eager to hear what she thinks about crypto.
Yeah, I'm not. I could do without that.
Get her insights, dudes. We're going to be doing we got half an hour. Throw your questions in. We're going to keep on talking. We'll throw out some good questions. Been an interesting few days though. Just while you guys are throwing your questions in, been an interesting week or so where value sort of seems to have done pretty well, and the sassiest stuff's been beaten up a little bit. Although not today. Today it's all seems to be every player wins a prize.
Yeah, some bigger moves too, huh? Like up and down for both, for everything, kind of a little bit like wobbly wheeled.
Yeah, typically that volatility,
turbulence in the airplanes, about the wings about to fall off.
DBX.
I have a comment. Here's a comment. Like sometimes people will ping me and ask me for my opinion on somebody. I encourage you to call those people directly yourself and form your own opinion. I am an idiot.
On people, they want to know your opinion?
Yeah. Like if it's somebody that I interviewed or something, like do your own damn work. That's what do your own work means. Putin. If you need to have an opinion on somebody, call them. Well, Putin's outside my area of expertise.
So there's some good questions here. Let me throw some questions out. Who's your favorite non-Buffett investor?
Buffett.
Charlie Munger. I don't know. I think I guess a guy that has sort of pushed me a little bit when I read him is Bill Miller. I kind of think he's done some interesting things. He had a blow up in there, which isn't great.
I'm going to say Walter Schloss, because I find him very inspiring, because he just like did his thing, didn't care what else was going on, returned money anytime he had too much that he felt like he couldn't put to work. And just the duration of his track record is very impressive. I know it's
50 years.
Something like that. I mean,
it's extraordinary, right?
Yeah, to just be in the game for that long even is its own hallmark. And to do it your own way, I think that's pretty impressive. So
there's a little.
Also, we're not talking about CEOs, people. I don't want people jumping out of their hats and saying, "Well, Nick Howley is a great investor." Yes, he is. I get it. It's a different question.
The thing is, Buffett is the point at which everybody else sort of redirects themselves, so that everybody refers back to Buffett. And if they're not, then they need a bloody good reason, because it's hard to achieve what he has achieved. I second your thoughts on Schloss. I love that 50-year track record at 20% a year, borrowing your copy of Value Line and walking home at 4:30 every day. Like, he knew how to live. He had that part right. I saw there's a little interview with Peter Lynch today. I think it was in the Wall Street Journal.
Oh yeah.
And he only ran that thing for 13 years, but he ran like the mutual fund was like $14 million in AUM when he started and 18 billion when he left. Whew. Which is a pretty good run over 13 years.
It's good marketing.
I mean, Greenblatt's super dope, but I don't think I could actually do what he does for real. I don't think I have the stomach for it.
You mean the which part, the magic formula stuff, or the
no,
special
like
situations?
The special sits, highly concentrated. I mean, I got mad respect for what he did, but he is way smarter than I
am. Peter Lynch is 77 years old, and the only two interesting parts of that article to me was he's 77 years old, and they said, he's not at all worried about anybody else getting a better track record than he is. He doesn't watch that stuff at all, and he's most proud of the fact that he's just had his 10th grandkid. So I think he's probably got it figured out.
Also, it was like Templeton had it pretty figured out too. He went international before anyone did. Yeah. He lived in the Bahamas, out away from the noise before anybody. And he lived his life also like totally on his own terms. And it seemed like a pretty legit go of it.
Got to shout out some love for Jim Simons. Dude just figured out a computer algorithm to take all our money. Good for him.
Yeah.
Took a lot of day trading dentists' money.
Yeah.
I got a question here, Bill. Can we get a recap of the BTN meeting?
Just take me private, but I think it was good. I like what they're doing there. I don't want to talk about really illiquid microcaps publicly, but I'm happy to hop on the phone and tell somebody. I am very happy for Mike, and I think Mike was a very, very good hire for them. And I look forward to what they have to come, but I don't want to say too much more than that.
Speaking of good hires, you know what I saw recently that I'd missed? Guess who's a board member at Markel now?
Morgan Housel.
Morgan Housel.
Yeah, I saw that.
I've been knowing that shit since like February or May, I think. I saw him at the annual meeting, and he said that he was up for nomination.
Okay.
Well, when Tom said he liked the book, and I was like, it's gonna happen.
I think that's a good pick.
Yeah, for sure. I like the way Markel thinks.
Yeah, me too.
I like the people they put in the room with them. I think that says something about you.
Phil Fisher or Howard Marks? Phil Fisher.
To do what?
I don't know. That's the question.
Manage my money?
Red or white?
Yeah.
Does Bill close his mind to commodities, or is it a considered
I have fucking lumber exposure. I'm not close to it. It's just a horrible game to play.
Close his mind.
Here's a good one. Matt Hansen, with PPI significantly greater than CPI, how can earnings not go down in aggregate? Good question, sir. I'm going to pass that to Jake.
I was looking around the library hoping there was someone in here who could answer that. Boy, I don't know. I'd have to
Margins
really think
are very,
about that.
very stretched, unusually stretched.
Strong, you mean?
Strong.
Yeah.
Yes, strong. Yeah, I think that probably mean reversion down is a reasonable bet through some hit, but I don't know what drives margins anymore. I don't know how they've got to where they've got to.
Yeah, I think part of it is, and I might be totally talking out of my ass here, but I think some of it is like the labor component is smaller now than it used to be. So that is, even if wages were to like ratchet up from here because of relative strength of employees asking for things, and it's even going to hurt that bad. I don't know, man. These are really big, hard questions. It'd be good to know the answers, but they're really hard to answer.
Look, I want to circle back to something here. If you listen to my podcast catalog, in the last 2 months, I interviewed a shipping expert and a lumber trader. Like, I'm not closed to commodities. I just don't feel like getting destroyed going into something that I don't know anything about. Like, that's why I don't do it.
That was the nature of the question, though. Like, considered pass if that's the case.
I just think it's a very hard game.
Yeah, no doubt. I agree with you. You don't want to be a generalist for the most part. Maybe not. That's at my end. Sorry, guys. There's I think they're trying to chop down my wall with a. Can you hear that? Can you hear that noise in the background? Oh.
No, it's fine.
There's a weed whacker like a yard from my wall. Is value investing a religion? No, religion.
You said weed whacker.
What are they? Weed eaters? Like, what do you call them?
That's either's fine.
No, I was just doing a Beavis and Butthead whacker. Anyway,
a religion requires a god, otherwise it's not a religion.
Well, Buffett's the god, my man.
But I don't think that he possesses any of the qualities of a god. I still think that he's a man.
Well, does I think there is demand adherence?
That would have been a better way of framing it up. It's definitely a cult. It might be a cult.
Yeah, I think there's pockets of growth that's a cult too. That's why my mission is to get two cults to talk to each other rather than remain stupid in their own ways.
If you're interested in the definition of a religion, you go and look at the IRS versus Scientology, because they lay out what the IRS considers a religion for tax purposes, and that'll answer your question about value investing as a religion.
Value investors don't pay taxes. I'm kidding. I'm internalizing all my pain.
Yeah. This one does. Oh, you mean because they're all losses?
Yeah.
I got plenty of short-term gains and lots of long-term losses. That's how you do it, right?
Yeah.
I'm tax cognizant. I try to run my gains up in the short term.
Yes, I think the commentary kind of dealt with evidence-based value investing. All investing is value investing. Jim Simons or Bill Miller?
Bill Miller. He's more qualitative.
In a cage fight?
I mean, Jim Simons' record destroys it, right? Like he crushes everyone, doesn't he? But I can't get down with that. That's just the computers winning. Fuck that.
A little bit
I hate
black
Terminator.
Box. Yeah, it's a little bit black box. Who knows what's really going on? Bill Miller's the real thing. Bill Miller's been doing it in public for so long that you can study what he's done. He's clearly one of the greats. And you got to pay the big Bitcoin investment too. Bitcoin, Amazon, all those things.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's won in a lot of different ways.
And just like our going back to our bullfighting many moons ago, until you've been gored and the crowd wants to see how you respond before they will crown you as a true bullfighter. So, and he's definitely been gored.
Well, that's one of the things I point out about Peter Lynch, not to detract from what Peter Lynch did, but it was 13 years and it was one cycle. And it was like, I forget the numbers exactly, but it might have been like 83 to 96, like very, very benign period for his style. Like the challenge is to run it.
I mean, like freaking
ripping. Good for his style.
Yeah.
But then you gotta run that same style through the .com boom and bust, and then maybe go well through value, and then go through this other period. Like, it's people who can sustain through different periods, survive in rough periods, and thrive in the good, in whatever is beneficial to their style. Those are the people who I have the greatest respect for. So that's Schloss, that's Bill Miller, that's Buffett, of course, Munger, those guys. It's not so much a game of like winning in the short term. It's a game of just like surviving over the long term. That's how you find out who really knows what they're doing.
Truth.
Can't take some of those questions for compliance reasons, fellas. I can't discuss any public pooled investment vehicles or anything like that.
That you run?
That I run. Yeah, I can shit all over others. Jeremy Grantham, Stan Druckenmiller. The Druck. Easy one. Ooh. But both of them have that quality of having been around for a very long period of time, surviving for a very long period of time.
I take shots at GMO. I don't mean to, but I'm gonna fade my shots here and say the one thing that I really respect about them is like they're very data driven and very principled in how they look at the world, and I respect that. I've gotten to listen to Jeremy Grantham talk a couple times, and I've never been upset that I did. So I'm gonna say Grantham on this just to fade Toby, but I do like some Druck. I like anyone that can say something and then trade the opposite 3 hours later. I respect that too.
Yeah, it's hard I would say that anytime I hear Jeremy Grantham speak, I agree with just about everything that he says. So
sell everything.
So I just say the Druck because I just like the Druck. I just like the man. I like Jeremy Grantham too.
I think they're both good in a way where I think they do say exactly whatever they're actually thinking, which is, you don't always get that, right? Yeah. Like they don't, especially Druck. Like if something is on his mind and bothering him, he'll say it as plain as day about it. He won't like pussyfoot around it.
The nice thing about Druck too is that, as Bill points out, like he just says something, and then if he changes his mind, he just goes and puts the other trade on. Like that's get a reputation for doing that. Then you're never going to be held to anything you do. It's great. The facts changed between lunchtime and the close, and I just sold it all and got super short. Druckenmiller, yeah. What about who are the best operators? Bezos?
I don't know. Bezos wins all. I like the guys from Fastenal a lot. I really like reading their calls. Brag about how they stay at their in-laws' house to save cost. Like,
that's too much.
I like that.
Too far. Too far. I hate all that. I hate all that. Like, there's a way to be. You can be frugal without being silly about it, right? Like, I'm not going to expect. You wouldn't expect an employee.
That's how they promote their stock, Toby. You got to let them promote their stock indirectly. True. I respect the game they play.
Jeff Immelt felt the same way. He used to have a plane. He used to fly around on a plane, and he had another plane follow him just in case the first one broke down. Everywhere, 2 planes.
That true?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Wonder why
there's no human on earth that's that important.
Oh my God! Yeah, you can't just like scramble a plane from somewhere else in the unlikely event that the first one doesn't work. No, you got to have 2. Yeah. Flying right behind because you never know.
A different way of promoting the stock. Yeah, man. They flew 2 G5s, I think, everywhere that they went.
Oh yeah, Paul Singer.
God forbid you're 6 hours delayed somewhere.
That's a good one. Paul Singer. I would not cross that man.
Singer's a G. No, Singer's a G.
Do you have your own Navy? Because I don't.
Yeah, you need to be a tough guy to go and take over another ship.
You know what I found out about them? Their PMs are all generalists. I thought that was kind of interesting.
That's very cool.
I've never seen any numbers out of there.
Watch somebody be like, "There's one PM that's not a generalist." And guess what? 90% of them are.
Actually.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I'll tell you what was your take on the Ray Dalio answer? Sorry to the Bridgewater listener, but that was quite a fumble. I don't know. I'm not going to quote it, but it made its rounds. It was interesting. He wrote a LinkedIn apology piece. I felt like maybe it was an apology, maybe it was a clarification. Potato in my mind. Yeah. Where all the news breaks.
So I think this is kind of an interesting question. Soros versus Druck, master versus apprentice. That's a really good question.
Sith Lord.
I don't know enough about these guys.
Well, it was Druck's idea was to short the British pound to break the Bank of England, and he famously takes it to Soros. And Soros is just like, this is one of those once in a lifetime trades. You got to put it on a gigantic size. Like that was Soros's contribution. So that's a good question.
Pretty big contribution.
Oh yeah, I'm not disputing it. But the question is, which is more important in that scenario?
Well, out of that specific scenario, Soros 100 times more important.
Well, it might not break.
It's not that much
without him.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And also, like, when you're right, make money.
Yeah. The other side of that, though, is when you're wrong, you blow up.
But guess what? They weren't wrong.
Not in that instance. And they're both still going. So,
yeah.
Got to respect it. Oh, hang on. I got a good question here. Guess which stock both Cathie Wood and Buffett own? Tell us, Samson. Let us know. Is it Stone?
Snowflake. That's my guess.
What up, Samson? You're a nice man. I like you. At least your comments appear nice.
Yeah, I've met Samson. Samson's real. I've met him in real life. He's a good dude.
He's a real human. Seems like a good dude.
Snowflake. I'm not saying he's a snowflake. Snowflake. Was that the answer, JT? Snowflake.
That was my guess.
Snowflake. How's Snowflake
that
going?
would be my guess. It's holding up pretty strong.
Yeah, so I got a question. Am I writing a book? Yes, I am writing the book.
How's that going?
Yeah, I'm writing all the time, and I'm much busier than I have been at the other times that I wrote the other books. So I just have less time to write. I also have 3 kids now, so it makes like this weekend, so I can't do it through the working week, and then I've got the weekend to work on it, and then this weekend we had soccer from 9:30 in the morning, and it ended with a parade at like 9:30 at night, and Sunday back to soccer, and then I just don't have any time. But I'm writing every chance that I get, but it's hard to write without like extended periods of time. I think the idea is interesting, and I find lots of really interesting stuff. It's just going to take a long time to get this thing done. All my other books I've written in like 3 to 6 months. This one's going to be nothing like that. It's going to be 3 to 6 years, I would guess. But thank you for the kind question.
The world can wait for your magnum opus. It's fine.
You never want to let those innermost thoughts out too. That's the other thing.
Your kids can't wait.
Samson says Stone.
There you have it. It's dropped like a rock. Maybe one to look at.
Yeah, I was short it for a little while there. No longer. Worked out. That was a good one. Yeah, shorting in the face of Buffett and Cathie. I feel good about that one.
Ooh, spicy counters there.
But that is gone soon. Oh, Buffett didn't buy Stone. Yeah, Berkshire did. Good point.
Don't let facts get in the way of a good narrative.
Yeah, you gotta put the person on the top, right? Yeah. Otherwise, like Berkshire Hathaway is a meaningless thing, but Buffett is
If it's
is real.
under like
All
$10 billion
right, here's
purchase,
one
it wasn't
for you guys. Next 10 years, who you got, Fairfax or Berkshire?
Ooh, next 10 years.
Yeah,
Might not be a
maybe
long enough time frame. Hey, Bill, you're breaking up a little bit.
I'll answer while Bill's stuttering
in the Matrix.
The Matrix. I will, and this is not investment advice, just there is a new Matrix movie coming out. Maybe that's what's so I will say 5 years, I'll give the nod to Fairfax, mostly due to valuation differences. 10 years, I will go Berkshire, and that's more due to ROE, quality of business taking over, and valuations spreading out. So,
yeah, I don't know enough to comment. I think that Berkshire's the much bigger entity, and so it's tougher for Berkshire. But Berkshire's also rock solid. Like, it is going to be bigger in that period of time. Markel and Fairfax are both smaller, similar entities, so much easier for them to find acquisitions that really would move the needle if we go through a big bust, which we may. It has happened before, not in recent memory, but they do happen.
I don't believe you.
I got one here. What's the largest holding of your portfolio? What's the story behind it? Do you want to discuss portfolio positions?
No.
Yeah, neither do I. I think we try on this podcast not to discuss stuff we hold because potentially gets us in trouble. I think we're kind of we're running out of time a little bit here, folks. Thanks to Bill and Jake, who've both had to dial in from miles away. Bill's dropped. Next week will be our last one of the year. We'll have to do something special for it. Our holiday episode. But we'll be back same time, same channel